is Friday, September 8th, and this is a special meeting of the Darien Board of Education Communications Committee. Our next meeting is October 20th at 8 a.m. And I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Adley.
Good morning, Joanne. Good morning. You're in the audience this morning. Good morning. Nice to see you. And Marge is at CES this morning, so I'm just going to walk us through the memorandum. So for this first meeting, I thought we would come together and just talk through a couple of matters that are on the table, and just to get perspective from the committee, and also just a wee bit of direction as we move forward. And it just keeps the ball moving with the committee. Again, the committee is a wee bit of a working group, and I appreciate the committee's input to these items. So for the agenda, the review of the strategies, we took the board goal and looked at the strategies and the measures and just sort of a wee discussion around those, what they might mean, how we might get there, and sort of a tentative time frame for those. We have an update on the website as an agenda item, and next steps in the communication plan. So the items that are in the memorandum primarily talk to the strategic work, the actions in the strategic work, and the measurements. Can I ask you, Michelle, just to put up the goal for me, please? You got it right there. Good. Okay. So I'm just going to talk from the memorandum at the moment. We have taken essentially each strategic action in there and sort of shared kind of what we mean by that. You good? I just wanted just for reference purposes, but I think the members of the committee have it. Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was just trying to read it, Michelle, but Julie has a copy where I'm looking at. Thank you.
So one of the action steps, the first one, I'm just going to go through these, is explore the additional in-person opportunities, town meetings, workshops for the community to engage with the board and the district administration. So there's a proposal here that we have bringing forward that we have a representative or representatives from the board. Obviously, you don't want to make it a formal meeting, so it'd be a limited participation from the board perspective, but they would work with the superintendent. We'd hold a series of four informal forums throughout the year, spaced out in September, November, January, March. Some of them might hit around budget time or otherwise. And that would provide the community an opportunity to have discourse with the board and the administration. I'm suggesting that just to get, we put some specifications around it just to give board members a sense of what it might look like, and we can talk about it. We were talking about a session lasting about 90 minutes. It'll be held hopefully early evening. And again, the majority of the board can attend to those. What would those topics be? There would be topics primarily what would be on administration and board's mind to share, and how then thereafter have an open forum for them for discussion or otherwise, questions or otherwise. There would be additional in-person and remote opportunities, actually, as we discussed yesterday at the curriculum committee, around areas of curriculum, mental health, safety and security, technology, and we would publish all of those. We'd have all of those in one place so that everybody could see what the agenda was or what. So those would be in addition to the forums. So if you had that's the wee bit of color for now around one of those strategic items. I can pause there for the moment and get people's input and thoughts or otherwise. Just on that action item.
Jill, you seem to have a thought.
I have thoughts. First of all, thank you for putting it together. And I want to start with, I absolutely love the concept. As I'm looking at it, I'm feeling like rather than starting with this is the mechanism and this is the timeline, I wonder if we want to start the other way with this is what we want to communicate and these are appropriate times to communicate it. I'm thinking, September, for example, is all of for the high school, all of the extracurricular meetings, plus all the back for everybody, all the back to school nights, and that's where we want people's attention to
yes.
be. So, and then, as we get into budget season, we want people's attention around budget. If I had to choose between just a chance to talk to the board and maybe getting people to go and talk about mental health, I might choose getting people to focus on a presentation the administration's doing about mental health. So I love the concept. I just would like to think about how we do it. That's my comment. I don't think we have to answer that today. I just want to put it out there.
I'll jump in. I think that's a good point. And yes, September is super cluttered. Back to school night happens in September at some point also. So there are a fair amount of opportunities for engagement probably in September as everyone's getting back to school. So it might be quick to try to do that in September. I was curious, Dr. Adley, where you were thinking these might happen if you had gotten to that point, because I think part of the idea is to get out of this room or out of this building even. And I think that's something to think about. We don't have to decide that right this minute. I do think I'm not struggling is not the right word. I'm playing with the idea of where we want people to focus versus people get to decide what they're interested in or what they're looking for. So we have to somehow balance that a little bit, recognizing that we can't always steer, like they have to go to the extracurricular meeting. We know that. Most people, I think, choose to go to the back to school nights. But if this is something people are craving, we might still have to find a way to have it as an additional on top of those things in as uncluttered an environment as we're able to find.
So, yes, so appreciate those comments. Unless if the board has specific things that it wants to address or wants the administration to address. I mean, certainly I can put to these if we push September to October or otherwise. I mean, I can put relative topics to those as to what would be on sort of priority list of the administration to talk about. I think also you have to decide, do you want to have a component where it's an open, where it's actually just an open, these are our priorities at the moment, or these are our discussions, or these are things we thought might be of interest to you. Is there anything else you want? Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think to have a forum where we're not doing that is sort of pushing it one way.
Yeah.
And I think you want to have an opportunity, as difficult as some of the topics might be.
Yeah. So maybe what we want to do is go out. Either, are you suggesting we either sort of start with one where we talk a little bit about the board's priorities and then ask the community what their priorities are, or are you suggesting that we survey or otherwise find out?
Unless you want to do it a different way or ponder a different way, I'd be inclined to share with them that whatever the dates happen to be, right, and wherever the venue is, and discuss what's an appropriate venue for time and also just appropriateness, intimacy of without being in a full auditorium.
Right. So
I don't really mind where it is, to be honest with you. We can do it at a school or whatever is the most. If we were doing it now, we would do it in an air-conditioned place somewhere conducive. I think we'll find a wee spot for that, whatever seems right. But I think I would tend to ensure that the nature of the meeting is, well, the purpose of the meeting right away from the communications committee and the board is to continue to outreach. In this meeting of 90 minutes, so we'll take a little bit of time for board to share some priorities and administration to share some priorities, and thereafter to field discussions.
Okay.
And a question and answer session open.
Okay.
I mean, that would be the nature, unless we want to construct it some other way, but that's.
Maybe sometime in the October timeframe.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can start there. Absolutely.
And adjust as we need to, see what works about it, what doesn't work. And then go from there. But I agree with you. I think it has to be open. I think the idea is to give people an opportunity to ask a question and get an answer. Even if it's not a full board decided, agreed, but just this is what this is how we look at it. This is what we're considering. And this is what we've laid out for the year, for example.
But
So
for me, I think we run into a sticky wicket in that point of if somebody brings up a topic that the board has not discussed at the board table in public, are we going to answer that, or we're going to say we haven't discussed that in public? And
So
for me, it's the latter, and I think that's going to cause friction of people being like, why are we coming here if we're not going to answer things? So I think we have to be cognizant of that and understand that that's.
So I'll get an example of that, Mr. Maroney, is right, as like after the budget process or after I present a budget, sometimes I'll go out and share information, right? And I have to be very cognizant of what I share, right? It has to be within the context of what I've shared with the board. Because I can't speak on behalf of the board, and I also, even if I'm speaking on behalf of administration, I don't want to talk to a different perspective on the board. So that even happens under those scenarios where I have to be very sensitive of, all right, so we presented the budget. Is that enough? They should have come to the meeting. Or do I go out and share thereafter, this is what the superintendent's budget has presented to the board, stay involved, right? But I also have to be cognizant that that is a dynamic, definitely.
I almost wonder if the board is not there in any formal capacity. I think almost the board could sit in the audience as an, you know, and then maybe it's really Alan, you leading.
Yes.
The board chair may or may not sit with you and, you know, chime in as appropriate, but I think we would probably just have the board chair speak on behalf of the board as opposed to the board.
Yeah, oh, no,
speaking.
totally, yes.
Yeah,
I think that would still have to happen.
Right.
if needed, but that way, I think the entire board could attend, but wouldn't necessarily be in quorum, it wouldn't be meeting. Would be invited to a meeting that is really your meeting.
I would think that there is room for, and I've been wrong before, so I might be wrong when I say this. If there were a question that needed to be fielded by the board chair or whoever the board representative is that hasn't yet been discussed by the board, to say that is something that's a matter the board hasn't yet taken up. What we would typically do is assign that to committee or add it to an agenda. Any thoughts that you have, we'd be happy to hear them and take those into consideration as we take on this topic, so to speak.
I just realizing, I think the point is to be collaborative and open
Yes.
and transparent. And if we're not, if the citizenship feels like we're just doing a meeting and then they're not getting answers, I think there can be frustration that quickly mounts. So I just think we
Right.
have to be,
Can
understand
backfire.
that.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
Totally agree. I'm actually, for instance, CDSP is here this morning. I'm very conscious of those issues when I'm in CDSP.
Yeah.
Right, or, and actually board members go to that too. So when they speak too, it's the same.
yes. Okay, that's good. So maybe we'll think about October rather than September.
Okay.
And shape that up a little more, which means we'll probably need to decide on that before our next committee meeting, because our next meeting is not until October 20th, right?
Well, if you're okay with me moving forward with an October one, we can,
Keep us in the loop.
okay.
Okay, great.
So another strategic step here was increased opportunities at the board meetings that celebrate student and staff accomplishments. One of the ways right away that we can do is continue to do it in certainly superintendent announcements and profile and so on. I would certainly say that I have to continue to do that. Another one that I would suggest, but it's purely a suggestion. I've seen it and I've worked under this scenario in the past where once a month you have a student or staff. I'm calling it student and staff in the spotlight, right? Where it profiles a staff member or staff members, what they're doing, or a student and what they're doing. It could be athletics, extracurricular, co-curricular, curricular itself, instructional or otherwise. So it's just a wee opportunity to profile something that's going on and celebrate something that's going on in the school system around a student input, participation, or a staff member's input or participation. It wouldn't be any more than that. However, it adds one more thing to the agenda for once a month. I've seen it work. I've actually implemented it. I've used it. It's a nice way to celebrate, but it's only one suggestion. These comments and suggestions this morning are simply that, and I'd be happy to entertain other thoughts on how we might do that.
How much work, Dr. Adley, goes into deciding on who to spotlight, how to spotlight? I'm just thinking about the behind the scenes consideration, preparation work that goes into that. Criteria, developing the criteria for who to, you know.
Yesterday, you heard the staff say how reflective and thoughtful and so on they are, right? All the staff are. So it tends to fall upon a staff member, even if you are spotlighting some things that the students are doing, maybe a student group or something, maybe some students are there. There's preparation for them, because anytime anybody comes before our board, they're very conscious of it and so on and so forth. They'll be professional about it. But hopefully if it's something that we're celebrating, clearly it's something they're doing and it's who they are and they can speak to it with a wee bit of passion and hopefully a wee bit easier. The way I would construct this is probably around okay, we're having, this month is a student in the spotlight. The following month, maybe it's a staff member in the spotlight. I wouldn't be doing both because it's just too much.
Mhm.
Maybe ease into it if that's the way we'd like to do it. And I'd be working with the principals for them to spotlight activities, professional activities, instructional, extracurricular, that we think we could take a couple of minutes, and it's not meant to be a long presentation.
I love the concept because so often when someone comes up before us, particularly I'm thinking of staff, it's a formal, they're kind of on the hook, they're going to be asked questions. We don't get to see that softer, we do see their passion, but it's always, boxed in by the fact that it's a presentation. I love the concept of a less formal, more celebratory experience. I'm cognizant of staff time and also board time, so I just think it would be important to time box it. But we have had in years past, the tutor singers come and saying, before one of our board meetings, I think there might be also different ways to do
Yes.
it. It may appear on agenda, it could appear. But I think it's something the board has looked at actually off and on in the time that I've been on the board. And I like the idea of taking an explicit look at trying to celebrate. We're working anyway on trying to make our board agendas as efficient as possible. So maybe we just add a little pressure to ourselves and say, we want to celebrate. Let's make sure we're efficient
Right.
when we meet. in our stuff.
I mean, it's not really, certainly board leadership can say, hey, could we get a wee profile of something if they want to, but essentially it would be, what are we profiling for the board and what for the community, right? And
Yeah.
give them a bit of independence there.
I think it-
Arguably, since we're talking about Ox Ridge, we can say we're already doing it. in
Yes,
September.
well, that's true. too, right?
There you go. Dennis, any thoughts?
I love the idea. I think it's brilliant.
I think it's very nice. Thank you. Can I ask a question on that strategy?
Can we just stay there for that second?
Yeah, sorry.
How do you want to proceed with that? Would you like me to talk to the board chair and so on, or
I think,
That'd be
yes.
great.
the leadership, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe for our end of September, no, maybe an October meeting.
October.
When do you think would be?
Well, I think technically we make a recommendation at the next board meeting. I think Julie will say on behalf.
Oh,
of
if you want to, that's
Communications
fine.
Committee,
That's good.
We'd like to recommend, you'll recommend both I
Yep.
think it's wise to brief people beforehand, so, Duke isn't surprised, but on both the meeting and the student in the spotlight. Or student staff. excuse
Yep.
me.
I would also bring to the table here an opportunity. This has been discussed before, but I hope we can find a way to participate in the Teacher of the Year program.
Is that on here?
It's not on here.
No.
I'd like to have discussions with our principals again and DEA.
Mhm.
I just think that's an opportunity that I understand what downsides potentially competition and other ways it poses, but it's just an opportunity to celebrate the profession. And I just don't know it seems to me that it's a good opportunity to profile our best staff members and what we do.
I don't think that's a board decision, and I
No,
think it's your call.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds intriguing, though. I don't know a ton about it, but I like the idea.
okay.
My question was, do we proactively submit stuff to the media about what's going on? Do we let them know that DECA won a competition, or do we let them find that out? And when I say the media, I guess I mean Darien Times for the most part. But I don't know if we have that bandwidth or resource that is helping get recognition for some of our activities and achievements in district.
So I would say, as I think I alluded to this in here in a different section. We are a large organization, and I just think a dedicated communications process person or otherwise, that's what they would do, right?
In an
Other
organized
than
way.
if I start writing a monthly article for the Darien Times, which I'm happy to do, there's an inordinate amount of good news programs that can be pushed out, but it's coherently doing that.
But I think staying on what we're talking about today, Alan, I think it could be a very simple phone call to the Times to say, this is what we'll be doing monthly. Please keep an eye out.
Oh, that part, yes.
Yes, and I think that's just a starting place, letting them know that this is an explicit goal of ours.
Yep.
We'll be doing it. The first example is Oxbridge.
Yeah.
You know, and that's.
Okay.
We can talk about whether we want to do bigger things later.
So is it okay to move on?
Yes.
All right, so as part of the communications plan, we were doing the focus groups. So again, just to keep the ball rolling here, the thought is do one for elementary, middle school and high school respectively, about 90 minutes, about 15 members on each of them. I just make the recommendation that a member of CABE facilitates that for us, because I just think it's useful to have a facilitator for these things. And I think if having a board member or a member of the administration do it, I don't think is appropriate or helpful.
Nope. Agreed.
So you can see what I've said there, that we would construct those and get them up and running. And hopefully, I think the time frame I said was end of September, October.
Yep.
Those questions that I have down here are not exclusive, by the way, because we added a few and so on, but they were just reminders.
I love the idea of parent participants being selected by the principals in consultation with CDSP. I think that's very efficient and smart. I just think that we might also, you know, what we found through the years, for example, when I was first working in special education parent representation, we ended up with two groups, in part because people interact with the district in different ways. So I just think that we might want to consider seeing if there's a bigger net. I think it makes sense to start where you're suggesting, but if we maybe just, or ask the principals to put it out, it's supplementary with what CDSP does, you know, make sure you reach out to XYZ person so that we're casting us. We have to make sure, I think, that the net gets cast really largely.
So do you actually mean without naming groups that we would like a person from this group and that group, and or are you thinking just diversify the actual participation?
Diversify, yeah, and just to make sure that because folks who tend to be attracted to the PTOs and the principals often are very school friendly, and we may want to catch some folks who are more skeptical.
And give people an opportunity to raise their hand.
Right.
And say, this is something I would like to be a part of,
Okay.
recognizing we have to limit it to 15, but I think I agree. I think we have to make the effort to let people know that they can sign up, so to speak, to be a part of this.
So having lived through this with ourselves in a number of different variations, I'm going to take that as diversify it without the requirement of having somebody on it every
Agreed.
group. And
Agreed.
Okay.
Definitely agree.
So that's kind of the way I would kind of proceed with these and get them set up date-wise.
Similarly, the union, we might have some staff who are not part of the union. I don't know how many, I really don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Do you mean certified, non-certified staff? Is that what you mean?
Or just even certified staff who don't enroll in the union.
Yeah, we have a few of them, but
I'm just saying.
okay.
You know,
Just to get the message
Okay, yeah,
out
okay.
beyond, yep. Excuse me. I have a few other thoughts on questions and things we'd like to probe. I don't necessarily have to walk through them right now unless we want to get into that. And then my other question on these is how, I definitely agree with having a facilitator, and CABE is a great option. What do we get back from them? The reason I ask is because focus groups are there's so much interpretation needed coming out of focus groups, because you're working with a small group, you're trying to dig deeper and understand at a different level versus what you're doing with a survey, for example. So would we be able to attend the focus groups? Would we be getting a report on what came out of the focus groups?
I would say, again, board members are always welcome to attend. You know, whether that hinders other people or not. Honestly, that those things for me, I'm not really worried about that, but I don't want It shouldn't look like a board meeting.
Right.
That's not going to help. Anybody.
Right.
And then you have to post it if that's the case on top of it, right?
I think it's worth you and Duke having a discussion about how to appropriately represent the board.
Yeah.
But
If you want to just, you know, if you want board
Right.
members there.
morning, Sarah. I do think that you could have Cave come back and present formally to this group.
Okay.
I mean, that both a written report back. I would think that I think even though we've gone through this a little bit, you would still get what are around communication, what's going relatively well. What are the opportunities that exist for improvements? And as they dig further into these and other questions, because we've asked to dig based on the survey that we did.
That sounds good. How would you like to get additional thoughts on themes and questions to explore?
Well, these aren't exclusive. I know Marge has a few more from the discussion that we had prior. So if there's comments that you have, if you want to forward them to me, or questions, I can look and see, have we either between myself here and Marge covered the ones that we thought we were?
Okay, so we'll forward those to you. Thank you.
So the next one is we did have as a strategy here, I'm literally reading it, consider recommendations for the policy committee, develop policies and administrative regulations to support enhanced district communications. So I just need your help in this. We had attached the ones that we looked at prior at the end of last year. And I'm either looking for, do you have any sense of components of a structure or approach to this that you would like to take? Is there any merits to some of the aspects of these, or how do we want to proceed with the policy? I just need your wee bit of guidance here as to how we might proceed and before going to the actual policy committee. Or sorry, yeah, policy committee.
I'd love to see this as an agenda item, perhaps at the next meeting. I think it's important for the communications committee to go through these and come up with philosophically what we might want policy to achieve. So one, what type of policies might we want, and two, what would be the direction? And to give them very explicit marching orders, if you will. And then, you know, they can take it from there and make sure that the language is consistent with other policies, crafted correctly with Shipman and Goodwin, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this committee needs to have a pretty explicit discussion or discussions before we pass it on.
So Shipman doesn't have a model policy, so that probably makes sense to have a further discussion and give them guidance if we want to have various components or structures to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bylaw information in this packet as well. So we probably want to tease some of that out and separate what exists in bylaws
Yes.
and definitions of roles of the board, role of the superintendent, et cetera. So I think that's one thing we need to do, is kind of separate those two things. Then there are a couple other topics covered in these example policies that are already being worked on at policy, one being the social media policy, which I think is in pretty good shape. Another being the method and means of raising a concern, which is something that the policy committee is working on also. And as I sit on the policy committee, this is helpful to know for that work. I don't think that I saw stuff in here that hasn't been taken into consideration in the work that policy is doing already on those topics. But so some of those I think we can tease out, but I agree with you. I would like a discrete agenda item to talk about this. And what I want to do is sort of inventory what we have and what we don't have as it compares to the things that are covered in here. So I want to pull our stuff, which I haven't done yet. Does that make sense?
So essentially, you would like this as a major agenda item for next meeting.
Major sounds intense.
Well, significant, other than
specific.
other than that, like having a real discourse about it, having digested these, either saying that we're not going to go in this direction, or here's some suggestions as the way we'd like to go. I know it's hard to sit and read them now, of course it is.
And there's some interesting stuff that I pulled out of here. I mean, some of these are short and sweet. Some of these are much more involved. The CABE example, is clearly being used by some districts. I thought there were some interesting ideas that aren't necessarily policy or bylaw specific, but some things to think about. Like, for example, there's the Greenwich I think it's a policy from Greenwich, but they inventory basically all the places to find the information you're looking for. Like if you want to stay up to speed on curriculum and instruction, go here. That might be a nice topic for one of your weekly newsletters, like back to school. Here's, don't forget, our meetings are always on TV 79 and you can find them on the web, whatever, like just to list out all the places that information exists. But so, yeah, I think there's some really good stuff in these policies, but I think it's a conversation of its own.
I think in terms of timing, we can certainly see how the first discussion goes, but I hope that we will plan to take 2-3 meetings if we need, because I think it's worth spending the time to do the pre-work. So if we can do it in one, fantastic, but I'd rather us have it in our minds that this is valuable and important work. If it takes time, it takes time.
That all makes sense.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
So a strategy was also to align communications to district priorities. So that those would be both the board goals and strategic plan, district initiatives. So things that are on the table clearly are the projects, vision of the graduate safety and wellness, curriculum, student and staff experiences. Those are the things primarily. If there are other topics that you think we should communicate around, I'm happy to consider those. And I'm actually happy to consider any discourse around this particular topic, because otherwise most of these probably will be coming from my office or administratively or otherwise.
I think that makes sense. I'll add, and I only added because I know that you intend it, but to do so in a meaningful way, when you're communicating news, to help explain how that is so wonderful, because it helps to illustrate how the vision of the graduate is being embedded in our yada yada. But I know that that's the intent, so I just wanted to say it out loud.
Yeah, agreed. I would love to see, maybe it's in 2-3 months' time, sort of a cross-section of what that looks like at each level. What that means, district down to ELP, building, some, curriculum, just so we can see in real time what's happening, not in real time. Examples.
Yeah, and it will be raw and organic and
Yeah. In 2 or 3
developmental.
months' time,
Yep,
a
yep.
couple,
Good.
some of the different newsletters and things like that. Because I think we'll talk about it at the board level when we touch on strategic plan, but at the board table, I don't necessarily want to go through specific examples, but I think it's helpful for the board to really see what's happening.
You good, Dennis? Excellent.
so another aspect that was pointed out was the website, and we clearly are going to continue to do work on the website. At the moment, all I can share with you is the chain of communication has been updated to reflect safety, mental health, improvements to the website. Will include the logos and developing standards for district communications. I think the board had asked, can we have a link to like a board email? That either should be up and running today or tomorrow. Well, it should be done by the end of the day. It may even be up right now.
I think it is.
So we made a couple of those changes. We're clearly going to be doing as part of the budget process a review of the website, make recommendations. When we talk about communications, I'll also just talk here a minute about student dismissal manager as an example. That's a piece of software. There's a third-party software that is located, I believe, in Florida, and we're at the mercy of the software and the.
Is it the hurricane that shut it down?
I don't think so, no, because we had this problem last year, or a smaller version of this problem last year. I'll probably have to look at it as I'm diverging a wee bit here, a bit of software, but the bigger picture is I need people here who can answer software problems in terms of someone who can work on software packages we have, be versant in it, can help the staff, can help the administration, can help our community members. So that's something I'm thinking about really in terms of in line with the communication. Perhaps someone can do both of those things, but I just think we need, whether that person is here now and I have to reorganize, or whether it's something else, we need someone here who can work with staff on software packages, not just infrastructure and so on and so forth.
So that's different from IT because it's working on third party.
It kind of is IT in a way, right? But it's just an aspect, an arm of IT.
Okay.
I can't like have my IT department say the school dismissal manager's not a technology, and my bus department say, well, it's not a part of the bus. I mean, it doesn't make sense to parents. But at the same time, I'm continuing to ask people to do things, and I sort of have to support them in that. But we're going to have to look at this dismissal manager.
Part of why we decommissioned instructional technology was because we know we need to look at
Correct.
status. So I think not here necessarily, but the
No,
board is
right.
expecting to hear back
Good.
on that. To that end, though, I think that we missed putting that in the strat plan,
Ms. Putin,
looking at the staffing structure for technology.
In the goals for the year.
Will you double check that, please?
well, it's probably going to come forward, Ms. McCammon, to be honest with you. So,
So I might as well put it in there.
well, you can either put it in, or it'll come forward anyway.
I think let's put it in, and then it can come forward.
Dr. Adley, the media package.
Yes.
It will be developed by whom? And is there a strategy that those are being developed against?
So I have to look at someone who with a wee bit of expertise in this. Technically, we don't have a set number of colors or nature of colors. We don't have a logo per se for the district, right? The blue wave is essentially at the high school level, right? I'm not saying to take away from those things. I'm just saying that can we settle on, because we end up taking images off the website, and it just would be nice to have on the front page of the website of our website that you see what our logo is and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Agreed.
So I would say that I'd be very confident, and I certainly have had these discussions last year included, that for the logo, I think a student can actually bring something forward. I think we have enough talent up there when they think about what is the mission and vision of the district, what are we about? I think a student could come up with a logo for us and get it professionally done. I may have to reach out to someone who has a wee bit of skills on putting together palettes and different things. I have to make sure everybody agrees this is what we're doing, right? Okay, this is what the board would have to agree to. This is the way, this is our emblems and so on. So I don't want to take away from anything we've done or what's in place, but I think we should, for our district, we should be we step above where we are.
Okay, there probably needs to be some blue.
I think.
This is why your communications chair,
See?
Julie. That moment.
Not another color that I won't say, but blue. Okay, that sounds great. So more to come
Okay.
on that.
The next step, the communications plan at the moment is just sitting where it was the last time, in all fairness to you. As we receive feedback from the focus groups too, that will feed into it as to what we would like to see and some of the communications moving forward. That is just sitting at the moment, and I think I'm going to revisit that relatively whenever we get the results. And that's honestly where we are with that. I think that's what I said the last time.
Maybe when we look in a couple months at the examples, we could also look at the plan in concert and just see where we are.
Yep. That's a good idea.
I mean, I think the intent is to codify what we have and agree on something that can be published as to what we would expect, the community would expect to see.
Great. Awesome.
The timeline is just a running timeline that keep on there that sort of reflects where we are and what will be happening around these various topics that we discussed this morning, and also the communication goal will also be updated as part of the board review of their own goals.
That sounds great. So maybe when we have our policy agenda item for our next meeting, we break that out into a little bit of timing in more detail as far as our steps to prep something to hand off. Because I think that spring 2023 means hopefully policy has put something together by.
Correct, yes,
2023, yep. So we could probably break that out some. But the rest of this looks great. Anybody? Good,
I think we're moving in the right direction.
and we're moving, which is great. All right, is that everything?
That's all right.
We'll move to public
Well,
comments.
actually,
Oh,
let me
sorry.
just wait and see here. I just want to check. Yep, we're good.
Good morning. If anyone in person would like to participate in public comment, please come up to the podium. If anyone online would like to participate, please use the raise hand icon. No raised hands.
All right, great. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Dennis?